Great.
Yeah, I didn't post more. I thought it won't be fair, you know. It's just so nice. But yeah, my kid finally learned to ski properly, so he could follow us everywhere, basically, even free riding zones. I was really kind of surprised.
Nice.
So, yeah, nice one.
How old is your son?
10.
10.
So
that's awesome.
Old enough, but I think we lost a couple of years because of COVID and everything. So he didn't get the proper training before.
Sure. It's such a good way to learn too when you can ski multiple days in a row. Forces you to like pick up the habit and get used to it.
Yeah, I was surprised. Like this guy was really a magician because he knew something, but when they finished after 5 days only, it was like a next level. So really happy that he can finally do what we do.
Yes.
Even
probably
better.
do more.
Yeah,
in his heart.
Yeah, he was actually speeding more than
just
me.
Fearless.
And I couldn't catch him, so definitely.
Yeah, and with the Olympics now too, there's some good inspiration to get better.
Yeah, actually, we have 2 photos where he looks like kind of Olympics, So I can post them later on social because it's really look like taken from Olympics games.
Kevin's having trouble joining the meeting, so let's see. I just
funny.
Have the link. I noticed this has happened to me a few times at GitLab where one of the links in the Google Calendar invite is bad and the other one works. I don't totally bizarre to me, but let's see if that link works for Kevin.
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, he's here. Nice.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I've had that happen to me too, and I felt like logging out and back into Zoom via SSL helps.
Same. We'll try and make sure those are kept up to date and we minimize the pain there. But every now and then, I don't know if it's logging out or Zoom pushes new updates. Meetings will just like break or disappear. So continue. Now that we have a bigger group here, I had added some topics to our agenda this morning. The main one just being the member limits for the free SaaS namespaces that we'll be working on primarily this quarter. I wanted to make sure everyone had access to kind of the full comprehensive set of assets that we're using for that strategy, starting with the overall kind of free user efficiency direction that Sam and Kenny Johnson, who's he's head of the ops team, correct, Sam?
Yep.
And he's like VP level, help put together. That gives you a really good understanding of the overall kind of like impetus for this effort, what's driving it from a business perspective and what outcomes we want to achieve, and kind of gives the longer kind of view of what this work will enable. It is lengthy, so if you need like a coffee break, that's great, like reading piece, I would recommend. We won't probably go through that today, but it is like great context for how like we fit in to the picture and how the work that we're going to do this quarter also fits in and ties to the larger company objectives and goals. From there, I've kind of dove into our growth domain and linked kind of a handful of epics and projects of which we're working within this quarter for this effort. The things that'll probably be most useful for this team is the growth conversion implementing SaaS user limits epic. That is where Sam and I have been organizing all of our work with regards to both UX and engineering related to the free user limit MVC and also capturing kind of follow-on work that we will like to do once we've implemented those. Happy to like walk through those epics if that's helpful for folks. I also added some context around just some product analytics data that we gathered last week to better understand as we go forth and implement this 5 user limit on free namespaces, what's the actual kind of broad impact to our user body and the amount of namespaces that we have currently in our base. We shared this data at the Growth Weekly yesterday, so some of you may have seen it already, but figured it was worth sharing again, just so you have kind of an understanding of the actual like kind of total impact that we expect to see, and as we're kind of working through the exact issues, kind of how that relates.
Thanks, Gail. I think I'll add to what Gail already mentioned. I think just taking a step back on why this is important to the business. The free product, we're continuing to see more and more people sign up and use the free product, which is great. But we're on pace for it to cost us roughly $30 million this coming year. Which I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I think it's like a quarter of the marketing budget to support just the free users. So the business was really kind of, or the executive team was really pushing, like, how do we get that cost down and increase the rate at which people move from free to paid? And there are 2 kind of core reasons why it costs us that much. One was the amount of storage that we gave people, which technically was 10 gigabytes per project, and you could have unlimited projects. So we had a lot of namespaces just spinning up project after project and maxing out the storage. So there's namespaces out there, free ones with terabytes of storage. So there's other teams that are working on implementing a namespace level storage limit and ensuring that people can properly manage their storage and purchase additional storage. And there will also be some sort of data transfer cap associated with that as well. So another team is going to work on that. That'll reduce a lot of the costs. But even after doing that analysis, it was very clear that the free product is simply too valuable. We put there's so many good features in the platform within free that unless there's specific team features like requiring merge approvals, code owners, some security scanning, like there's very specific things that people upgrade for. But if you don't feel like you need those things, you can happily use free forever. And there's some pretty giant companies out there that use our free software. So the goal with the 5 user limit is to continue to allow us to have a big free platform that is valuable, but kind of draw a line in the sand in terms of team size to say after a certain point, as you scale with GitLab, you need to move to a paying tier. So that was kind of the rationale on how we thought about it. And I linked to the internal kind of business case write-up that Kenny and I wrote to kind of convince Sid and the leadership team on why we still believed user limits were important even after implementing storage limits. And Dallas, I see that you're unable to, multiple people aren't. Yeah, I think you have to, it's the internal handbooks. I think you have to be.
Yeah, go through Okta first. And
okay, did that work?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Does anybody have any questions about this work? The one thing I'll also add here, Doug's already done a great job of digging in here. There's some existing feature work done by the fulfillment team that specific customers have asked for to add a user cap as a paying customer, so they don't go over their number of seats that they're paying for. So let's say they bought 100 seats, they can set their cap to 100 so that they know there won't be any overages during the year. So the fulfillment team has more or less built out that feature. It hasn't shipped, but we are going to be able to utilize that feature on the free SaaS experience to implement a 5-user namespace limit. So Doug has done a kind of a deeper investigation on that in partnership with the fulfillment team in terms of how we can kind of reuse some of their work there, which will be really helpful to us because they've gone through a lot of the nuances of how to count users, which is very helpful for us.
Mhm.
And then I'll just call this in terms of the product analytics issue that we dug into of how many projects are not within groups that have multiple users. And Kevin, I feel like you kind of really started pulling on this of like a month or two ago. So thank you for kind of like digging in here. And it's very clear that it's obviously it's a problem and a concern. There's 100,000 projects with more than one member, and there's 2,000 projects with over 6 members. So we're working with Matei to kind of rethink how you create a project to ensure that ideally it's created within a group, and strongly recommend to users that they put it in a group going forward to kind of stop the bleeding. And then we're starting to think about talking with Katie about potentially having a blog post on how to, for existing users, how they can how they can create a group and move an existing project into that group, which has its own kind of just like technical concerns with it. So it's not the easiest thing for users to do, but it will be important for them, especially once this limit is imposed. And Doug, just a call out here, as we worked through this in the last week, I realized I'm going to create a spike issue for us as a team just to investigate how the using the user cap feature for the 5-member limit, how that will work for projects that technically aren't in a group. Because I guess the personal namespace might technically be a group, so it would still work. I don't know.
Yeah, yes. So a group is a namespace, but not vice versa. A namespace is not a group, but so a group adds on things to a namespace to make it groupish, I guess. But they're the same table in the database.
Okay.
Right. So yes, the projects that don't have a group would be the personal projects underneath the personal namespace. Right.
Are you allowed to invite people to personal projects though?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what was your question, Sam, if there was going to be an issue with that? I think
Well, just I'm just curious if there will be any issues in enforcing the 5-member limit on projects that are not located within groups.
Enforcing it, you mean remediating the records?
Yeah, so capping it at,
so there's 2 things, right? Remediating the records, the one remediating the data, the projects that are over the limit right now, and then enforcing it going forward, right? 2 things. I don't see an issue with that because the project, when you go as far mostly in a project, it doesn't care who the parent is. It just in that sense, they operates the same way as far as like inviting members goes and things like that.
Okay. I know there will be other issues like they can't upgrade or start a trial or so I think regardless, we want them to ideally move their project into a group if possible. But it's good to hear that at least the limit should work because that would be a decent sized back door that we wouldn't want to kind of ideally leave open.
Yeah, I guess better way to say it is the difference between them is mostly a UI thing rather than a backend thing.
Okay, that's great. I'll still create the issue just so we can document it and kind of talk through the details, but
That's a good idea.
Camille
Maybe
has a
some
question.
interesting sale calls.
Will be. Camille asked, now that we have internal rationale, how does this work for the public? Will it be some campaign that educates users about upcoming changes and prepares them for this? So we are working with the PMM team to get this user limit announcement incorporated into a larger blog post around the upcoming storage limits. And I think, are there any other, there's like a couple other topics that are addressed, but it'll be wrapped into this blog post that has been expedited and should be coming hopefully in the middle of this month. That will be announced. We are kind of going back and forth with her right now about the strategy for informing users more directly. There's a blog post that will be sent out, but not everyone is going to read that. There will be emails at some point, but timing seems to be kind of the question and debate right now. Is that how you interpret it, Sam?
yeah. And the clearance we've gotten thus far is that we are okay to develop in public, especially for our back end work. And if somebody finds it in somehow, we're comfortable with that risk. But kind of more obvious front end work of like Emily has already started doing some great work on like what banner messages could look like or what the updates in the members modal would look like. I think we should reserve that kind of front end work that's very explicit around the limit to after the blog post.
Yep.
Well, I don't understand that part of front end versus the back end. The words will be the same and all be behind a feature flag that won't be turned on. So what would be the difference? Is your thought that someone will be able to parse the front end code easier than they would the back end code?
I was just thinking from a visual standpoint that I guess in the grand scheme of things they're identical, but I was thinking like somebody finds this like what the actual screen is going to look like and it's very shareable.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I think we should be protected by that if we use confidential merge requests and issues and those things. So I think we're fine there because that's usually where the screenshots are. You know what I mean? They won't actually be in the code. But my fear was like in general was when the code gets in, like people could see it and they could see your branch, but they won't have access to the merge requests though if we keep them confidential. So I don't think that
okay,
be a concern.
that's good to know. But I'm cautiously optimistic that hopefully in the next week to 2 weeks that blog post will go live and then we won't have to worry about any of this. So
We'll also keep you up to date around the broader, like as the messaging campaign and plan comes together. We are definitely pushing for the sooner notification, the better. Sam and I kind of think about this like how you would treat deprecation messaging. Like it's fair to let users know as soon as possible that a change is coming and give them as much lead time and direction so that no one is caught off guard and no one is put in situations that are unduly painful when the change actually goes into place. There's some kind of differing opinions at the leadership level about when we should be sending those messages, but we should hopefully have an answer soon and can share that back with this group, probably maybe even by next week when we do our kickoff. for 14.9.
Sounds good. Thanks. My worry
Yeah,
was
no
mainly
problem.
like if this leaks and we never sent any information, this is like a great opportunity for, you know, bad publicity, you know, some article like GitLab changing something for the wars and not even telling people about it, right? Like they would have a proven code. So this is like a worst case scenario, and of course our users should know, right? That's
Yeah.
ongoing
Surefire
campaign
way to get on the
about-
top of Hacker News.
Yeah.
Not where we want to be.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we're all
And it-
aligned, and I'm a firm believer that we should email users, especially impacted users, as soon as we're comfortable announcing this. But we'll continue to work with the PMM team and get alignment on when they're comfortable with us emailing them. And just for reference, you know, that email will not be something that our team has to manage. We'll work with the product analytics team to get a export of the email addresses and partner with somebody in marketing to just send the email out of the marketing system. So that won't, just for reference, it's not gonna, we don't have to worry about doing something weird with Mailgun and all that. We'll just use the marketing team system.
So on that note, Sam, I had a question about an earlier data analytics issue that I was on, but I don't know if that was the right place to ask it, so I didn't. But how are we calculating let's put it this way, are we calculating the number of users in these namespaces the same way we are in the code? I don't know if you know that, but I mean, are the billable users they're counting, is that matching what I'm counting?
That is a very good fundamental question.
Yeah.
Gail and I will spin up an issue on that, and we can just document how we're counting them in the code, and then we can pull in the product analytics team.
It's a pretty complex query, and it goes down through all levels of the namespace. So just if they're only counting at the namespace level, they could be missing at the top level. They could be missing a whole lot.
Well, I believe the way, and don't quote me on this, we can get them to clarify, but the way the data is structured in Snowflake is there are parent level roll-ups of like actions within all of the sub projects and groups and everything within that namespace. And that is where the count of members is occurring. That's my understanding at the moment, but I absolutely want to triple check that.
Yeah. Made a note. We'll do that today. Cool. We are nearing the bottom of the hour. Camille, I saw you had one more topic, and then we have a read-only, just a note to add your upcoming out of office. Camille, do you want to talk about that one?
Right. So I just wanted to know if we are doing some check-ins about the milestone progress on those calls, or we do them offline or async. That was one thing, and another was gathering some feedback on planning issue, which we started talking about in the previous planning, and we could try some improvements in the current upcoming 14.9 planning issue, which I already created, but we can do some small improvements. So if anyone has any feedback, maybe just comment on that thread, and then I will gather it and discuss it with Sam and Gail as well. So we have some ideas from this.
Great. And then as far as just check-ins, from my perspective, kind of the individual kind of drives how they want to manage their check-ins. I know Dallas is pretty consistent about adding kind of a weekly async update. There's a template for that in the handbook that can be used, not a requirement. We'll probably be touching base on 14.8 issues that are still in development over the next few days, just to get a sense of where they're at and if we should expect them to carry into 14.9 too as PMs. So comments in the issue are fine for those two.
Okay, so sounds good. I was just checking if there's something I should be arranging and I'm not doing this or whatever. So if there was not something that was consistently used here, that's fine.
Cool. All right. Anything else? All right, it's good to see everyone. Have an awesome Wednesday and great rest of your week. And we'll see you again next Wednesday for 14.9 kickoff. Great. Thanks,
Y'all
everyone.
later.
Good one.
Bye.